What's going on, everybody? Welcome or welcome back to my channel, Desi Living Life Unapologetically. My name is Desiree if you are new here. And in today's video, what I want to share with you are all of the books that I have read thus far for the first quarter of 2026. Full transparency, there are 2 more books that I need to complete before I'm completely finished with my first quarter reads. But at the end of the video, you will see the last 2 remaining books. So because I have quite a few, I'm just going to get right into it. I got a little bit of inspiration from another content creator here on YouTube, Tatiana, lately. And what she did a short where she would just share with you the books that she had read, and she told you whether it was a yes, no, or maybe. So I'm going to kind of piggyback off of that, but I'm going to tell you whether I liked the book, didn't like the book, and if I'm going to keep the book. Okay? So we're going to go through it. And I'm not showing you these books in any particular order. It's just the way that they are stacked here on my table and on my chair. All right. So the first book I'm going to share with you is Tyrese Gibson, How to Get Out of Your Own Way. This is the second time I purchased this book. The first time I purchased it was back in 2012 when it came out in hard copy. I did enjoy the book then, and I still like the book now. So this is a keeper. Angela Henry, Her Pretty Lies. I told you all about her before. She is a Black psychological thriller writer. I know she does some romance. I think it's YA. I'm not too sure, but her psychological thrillers, this is the second one of hers that I have read. The first one was Perfect Affair, which I coined the Black version of The Perfect Marriage with some psychological warfare. Her Pretty Eyes, absolutely a keeper. Psychological warfare, big time. The next book, The Perfect Divorce, Geneva Rose. Absolutely, I want to keep this book. The next one, Shirley Chisholm, Unbought and Unbossed. I do enjoy reading political reads. Not every single political read. I'm very particular. Sometimes I will read books that will take me out of my comfort zone, that will challenge me, that'll get me to think differently, quite possibly. But this is one person I've always wanted to read up on. I did read up on her years and years and years and years and years ago, back in the day when I was in elementary school, we had to write papers. We had to find someone for Black History Month every week to write a paper on. And everybody was writing about Dr. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Harriet Tubman. I also fell in line with that, but then I started writing on Shirley Chisholm, Sojourner Truth, Madam C.J. Walker, the abolitionist Nat Turner. Yeah, I was doing that too. But yeah, that's a keeper. Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. This is a keeper. Let me show y'all how this book is written if you're not familiar with this particular book. This is how this book is written. There are some pages where he will have more than, and I seen one. He will have more stuff in it. But this book literally took me like an hour and 15 minutes to get through. But I did enjoy this book. I believe this book is a banned Black book. I believe it is. Don't quote me. The next book is by Walter Dean Myers. It's entitled Monster. This is definitely a banned Black book. I'm going to show you how this book is written. So this book is written like this. These are journal entries. This is a realistic fiction story. The person, the main character, is real. The story is fictional. However, this could be somebody's real life. This young man decided to take his case because he was in a detention center. So everything he wrote down in his journal is what's in this book. He decided to take this entire case and turn it into a film. So it is written, this book is written like a film script more often than not. And then you have his journal entries. So when I say written like a film script, it tells you who's talking. Okay, this is the person and this is what they said. You know, it tells you who's talking. This book took me less than an hour and a half to read in one sitting. I'm looking at the window, y'all, because the wind is blowing and it's snowing. The snow is not sticking, but still. But this is definitely a good book. I want to look at some other material by Walter Dean Myers. He has since passed away, but I think his son also helped him co-author this book. Again, this is realistic fiction. I at first thought this was the young man, Sharif Broward, I think that's his name. Sharif Broward or Karif Broward from New York City, who was accused of snatching a book bag. And he spent, what, 2 or 3 years in Rikers Island before he was able to bond out or whatnot. And then after he got out and all the charges were dropped, a few years later, he unalived himself. I thought that's what that story was, but it's not. But I'm glad I got that, because this story tells millions of stories from, about our young Black boys. The next book, Parable of the Sower, definitely a keeper. The next book, Tanisha Stewart, Vengeance is Mine, definitely a keeper. I do like those. I just finished this book last night. I like this book. I love this author, but this book got on my nerves.
Okay, you guys, so I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but I'm definitely going to say something that many of you may not want to hear if you have not read this book that I'm talking about. But I just had to say what I had to say and get off my chest what I felt.
I am going to keep this book, but this book got on my absolute nerves. There's no way I should read 3.75 quarters of your book before we find out who the suspect is, and as quickly as we find out who the suspect is, the book is over. S.A. Cosby, All the Sinners Bleed. I'm keeping this book. I like the book. Nothing beats Razor Blade Tears at this point. I do have King of Ashes down here. I don't know when I'm going to read it. If y'all could tell, I don't read books when everybody read books. I read them when I get ready to. I like to read hyped books when way after the hype has gone down, because I can definitely get a better or truer feel of whether or not I like the book or not. Because once the hype wears down, then I'm going to read it maybe a year later, and then we will see if I get the same thing that everybody else gets. All right. Now, we have some other books here. These 3 books I'm not even going to keep. Perfectly Nice Neighbors by Kia Abdullah. I liked the story until it got to the end. The end is what pissed me off, and that's the reason why this is a no for me. I do not like this. This book is going to the Freelo Library, or I'm going to give it to somebody in my community that enjoys reading books like this. I'm not even going to sit here and do one by one because it's the same author. Frida McFadden, The Intruder, and The Tenant. I like The Tenant better than The Intruder, but the reason I cannot stand The Intruder is that, once again, Frida did not put a trigger warning in this book. Instead, sorry y'all, that's my phone. Instead, she told you to go to her website to find out the triggers of her books. Why do I need to go to your website? I will be honest and tell you, had I known that last book, had I known that book that I ended up putting in the garbage had a trigger warning, I would have never spent my money on it. And that's The Teacher. I put this right in line with The Teacher, even though it's not that type of abuse, but it does have abusive behavior in here. I don't like that. Number one, this mother put her own child in the closet. I've been locked in the closet before with a snake thrown in there. No lie. Not just me and 3 of my cousins. Locked in the closet with a snake thrown in there. And we ain't doing this. So that's I'm giving this away. Again, The Tenant. I like The Tenant better than The Intruder, but no. Y'all, I got one more book of Frida McFadden's to read, and that is The Perfect Son. And if I have an issue with that book is going as well. There are several books of hers that I am going to get rid of. I'm going to give away, but there are some I'm going to. I think I'm just over Frida at this point. I'm just over Frida. I have 4 more books I want to share with you. And some of these books I do have a reading journal entry on, and some I don't. Actually, well, one I haven't done it yet. I'm getting it ready. So the next one I want to share with you is Soul Custody by Stephen W. Smith. This is a Christian read. This is Bible based. This is about taking care of your whole person, taking care of your soul. You are no good for anybody else if you don't take care of you first. Okay. So this book does have review questions, or it calls it questions for reflection at the end of each chapter. And as you can see, I have answered these questions. I went through this book and answered all of the questions. Now this I know for a fact I went through in January because I wanted to get this book read and completed in the month of January. So this is done. This is definitely a keeper. The next Christian content book that I read is by Tony Collier. It's entitled Brave Enough to Be Broken: How to Embrace Your Pain and Discover Hope and Healing. Now, don't take this the wrong way when I say this, but I have to say this to give you an understanding. Both of these books talk about the exact same thing using different verbiage. However, this is the black version of what he is saying. Okay? That's the best way for me to say it. This is the black version of this. Of course, I understood everything Stephen Smith was saying in this book. Also understood everything Tony Collier was saying in this book, because they were basically saying the same thing. The difference is she's coming from the side of a woman, of a black woman. Same thing, just a different way of delivering it. You understand what I'm saying? I hope you get that. But those are keepers. The next book I read, I don't care how you feel, I don't care about your political beliefs, but I had to get this book simply because it's part of history. This is 107 Days of Kamala Harris. There were things in this book that really pissed me off that they did to her, or that they did not stand up for her. There was the undertone, of course, of that's a black woman right there. They laugh loud, they do this, they do that, and all that type of stuff. Sexism, racism, all of that stuff. And it was just like, we just can't be great. Black women just cannot be great at all. We're some people say we're too much, other folks say we're not enough, other folks just say we're just way more than too much. And anyway, I enjoyed this book. This is a keeper for me. Again, I like reading some political reads. I read other type of books, as you will see as you continue to venture with me here on my vlogging channel. You will definitely see that. And I'm putting everything on this channel, y'all. Everything. My budget, my books, my weight loss journey, or my muscle building journey, or whatever you want to call it. Not trying to be a bodybuilder, but just trying to lose some weight and look good for myself. You know what I mean? The next book is James Baldwin, Go Tell It on the Mountain. I literally could do a video about this all by itself, but and you can read, if you've read this book, you know that you can pull out so many topics of discussions from this one book. It's never ending. And the one thing that I gravitated to the most is that when James Baldwin spoke about the beatings, or wrote about the beatings that this young boy John had received, I immediately went to slavery days, where slave masters beat their slaves to show discipline or to correct their behavior. And what it did was it just showed me that black people back in the day, way back in the day, decided to take what the white man did to them and perpetrate it on their own children, and it's just constantly passed down. And that's what's still going on today. That's what's still going on today. As a matter of fact, when I read this book, Earl, the autobiography of DMX, which is one of my favorite, he's my second favorite rapper. My first one is Tupac, always will be. When he talked about the beatings that he got, it took me back to James Baldwin's book, and it broke my heart. Because then I look at it today, like me, when I was growing up, yep, I had to go out and get my own switch. I got beat with electric extension cord, hanger, whatever was around. Same thing. And what's in common with all three of us? We're black. I'm not saying that nobody else did not have to deal with that. I don't know, but I know we do. I know we have been like that. We've gone through that. And it's just things that have been passed down, and it just broke my heart in this book. It broke my heart in this book to find out that this man who calls himself a child of God, that he was a preacher of God, didn't even acknowledge he had a child before his first son was born. Before his second son was born. His second son was Ron, which was John's brother. he didn't even acknowledge his first son, and he basically damn near couldn't stand John. And he was beating John half to death. He was beating Ron half to death. But he looked at Ron as his prized possession and looked at John like he was crap. It was almost like looking at Isaac and Ishmael. Isaac was the promised son of Abraham, and Ishmael was just whatever. That's how I looked at this book when it came to John and Ron. What's his name? John. I'm sitting here calling him John. But was his name John for real? Yeah, his name was John. Lastly, again, was Earl, the autobiography of DMX. And Earl has it's an acronym for Ever Always Real Life. And this was written here very light. Ever Always Real Life. And this book filled in the gaps of the missing information that I didn't have of DMX's childhood, but it also expounded more on who he is as Earl, who he is as DMX, who he is as X. And he explains those three people to a degree at the end of the book. I really enjoyed this book. There were times I wanted to scream, holler, especially at his mom. I almost wanted to go through the book and punch her in the face, because she just, and I understand she was up under a lot of pressure, but he didn't ask to be in this world, nor did his sister ask to be in this world. And all he wanted her to do was be proud of him, and she could care less. I mean, she let a grown woman give her son alcohol at the age of 8. Anyway, but yeah, this book gave me all the missing information that I needed to put pieces together. I have a better understanding of the songs that he has written. I've been listening to Get At Me Dog since I've been reading this book, and everything he's saying in there, minus the lawnmower and the grass, everything he's saying in there is in this book. Every single song DMX has ever written, that has ever been published, that has ever been put out there on radio, he's talking about his life. In this book, this man is talking about how he was robbing and stealing stuff from people with no mask on. He wasn't scared to be out in the street with no mask on, no nothing. He did not care. He cared, but he didn't care, because he knew he could tear folk up, whatever. But you can also, when you look at him, you can see the pain that he had. And I just appreciate him more. You finally find out where a lot of his demons came from, and you finally find out where a lot of his hurt and pain came from. A lot of his hurt and pain came from his childhood, from his mother, from his father not being there, for how he was treated by his mother. She put him in 2 different group homes. The first group home, he was tricked into going. The second group home, she told the woman at the group home he couldn't come home. It was for Thanksgiving. He was ready to go, and that woman was like, "No, he can't come home. When I tell you Earl can't come home, I'm telling you Earl cannot come home." And the only place he ever wanted to be, which was the only place he was ever loved, he felt love, was his grandmother's house on his father's side. Y'all, if I can find one of my most favorite pictures of DMX, I will put it up here somewhere. But there is one in here of him that is another favorite of mine. Where did it go? And that's this one right here. This is a favorite picture of mine, of DMX. But there's another one. And in another one of his songs, he said he's the only one. I can't remember if it was Get At Me Dog. No, it wasn't Get At Me Dog. I can't remember which one it was. He said he can go away and come back and clean himself up, and he's fine. And he's done that multiple times. He would go away and get strung out and all this other stuff, and he'd come back. You wouldn't even know that he was strung out. I remember when he did the BET Awards, he had been out in the street. I think he had been arrested a couple of times. I think that's what we knew at that point, that he had been arrested, but we didn't know he was out there in the street getting high and doing all of this stuff. And when he came back to the BET Awards, he didn't look like he went through nothing. He was clean shaven. He was doing his thing. I just appreciate DMX more because now I know his story. The only thing is I wish I would have read this while he was still living, because I definitely would have had the same perspective now than I did then. But it will be to give him his flowers more while he was alive than now. And it is coming up on the anniversary of his passing, along with Prince. We ain't gonna get into that. But the current book that I'm reading is entitled Night Crawling, and I will let you know my thoughts on this book at the end of the first quarter, along with another book that I need to get done by the end of March. So in the next clip, you will see that. Peace.